This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
British Prime Minister Theresa May to face a vote of no confidence amid a deepening Brexit crisis in the UK. Nigeria's main opposition candidates skip signing ceremony for an election accord, pushing for a peaceful presidential poll next year. And we get more reactions after the landmark adoption of a global migration compact. You're watching Africa Live. Hello and thank you for joining us. I am Peninah Karibe. Also coming up this hour. Tunisia welcomes China-led Belt and Road Initiative as it pursues gateway position into Africa, and how an initiative targeting the less fortunate is spreading some festive season cheer in South Africa. We begin with the political crisis that is fast evolving in the United Kingdom. British Prime Minister Theresa May has pledged to fight a vote of no confidence against her leadership. Speaking outside her Downing Street office, May said a change of leadership would put Britain's future at risk and jeopardize Brexit negotiations. Lawmakers in the Conservative Party are set to vote on the no confidence motion against the UK Prime Minister later on Wednesday.
Sir Graham Brady has confirmed that he has received 48 letters from Conservative MPs, so there will now be a vote of confidence in my leadership of the Conservative Party. I will contest that vote with everything I've got. I have been a member of the Conservative Party for over 40 years. I've served it as an activist, councillor, MP, Shadow Minister, Home Secretary, and now as Prime Minister. I stood to be leader because I believe in the Conservative vision for a better future, a thriving economy with nowhere and nobody left behind, a stronger society where everyone can make the most of their talents, always serving the national interest. And at this crucial moment in our history, that means securing a Brexit deal that delivers on the result of the EU referendum, taking back control of our borders, laws and money, but protecting jobs, our security and our precious union as we do so. Through good times and bad over the last 2 years, my passionate belief that such a deal is attainable, that a bright future lies ahead for our country, has not wavered. And it is now within our grasp.
Well, let's get you more on this. From London, I'm joined by Oli Barrett, and Jack Parrock joins me from Brussels. Oli, the political crisis in the UK is deepening by the day. What's the latest on that planned no confidence vote against Theresa May?
That vote will take place tonight, London time, between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. and the 1922 committee which runs that process tells us that the result of it will be out as soon as possible this evening, London time. So we are only hours away from knowing whether Theresa May will remain as Conservative Party leader and UK Prime Minister, or whether she is going to be removed from both of those posts. So a difficult day ahead for Theresa May. She will spend it trying to lobby MPs to rally behind her and try and see off this leadership challenge. If she does see off this leadership challenge, if she wins a majority of her own MPs in London later on, then that means she is immune from another one for another year. So she will clearly hope that that is what happens. She struck a very defiant tone indeed outside number 10 Downing Street earlier. This doesn't appear to be a Prime Minister who is cowed by this process, and that might well be because she feels this is a boil which needs to be lanced.
And Jack, the UK Prime Minister has been courting the EU again in regards to the Brexit deal. What more can you tell us about this?
That's right. So this leadership challenge comes off the back of a meeting here in Brussels with the European Council President Donald Tusk, the European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, and that was after meetings with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte and German Chancellor Angela Merkel yesterday. Essentially what she was trying to do was get support and get some clarification, some wording in this Brexit deal that she signed with the European Union that she's unable at the moment to get past the UK Parliament. Now here in Brussels, in the building behind me in the European Commission, everyone would have been time stood watching that speech by Theresa May outside Number 10 for what she had to say. There were some interesting things within it. Firstly, she said that if she is ousted as leader and a new leader came in, then there's a chance that Article 50 could be either extended or halted altogether. And that would essentially mean she was saying that Brexit could be stopped. The European Union has always said that it wants the United Kingdom to remain within the EU.
So, Oli, what are the options for the embattled UK Prime Minister, and how will the outcome of Wednesday's vote impact the country?
Well, it's going to, of course, depend on the result of the leadership vote later on. If she wins that, then she appears to be saying that she will continue to fight for the deal that she's already agreed with Brussels on the terms of Britain's exit from the European Union in March of next year. She will perhaps feel emboldened at that point, perhaps feel like the political momentum has swung in her direction for the first time in recent memory, and perhaps feel like she then has a fighting chance of getting her deal through Parliament, as Jack is saying, with the threat of, if that deal doesn't go through, perhaps a Labour government coming to power, perhaps no Brexit taking place at all. Those are the kind of warnings that Theresa May will be making to her MPs today, in the hope that she can win the leadership challenge and then get her vote through Parliament. But both of those things at the moment look like an uphill task for her. And even if she does win this leadership challenge, getting that vote through Parliament, that deal through Parliament, still looks very hard indeed, with dozens of her own MPs saying they're opposed to it.
But Jack, in the event that the UK Prime Minister leaves office, how will this affect the Brexit process?
Well, that would be a big question. If a hard Brexiteer came in, that could see the UK essentially leaving the European Union without a deal. The European Union insists that this deal that's on the table, that's been negotiated, is the only deal, and it cannot be renegotiated. There's an EU leaders summit Thursday and Friday here in Brussels this week. The UK Prime Minister could come here after a vote of no confidence against her by the end of today. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out. As far as the European Union goes, it's now about trying to get this deal through the British Parliament. As Ollie was saying there, it looks very unlikely. There were not any real clarifications on this complicated issue of the Irish border backstop, which is the sticking point for many of the MPs in the British Parliament. We'll have to wait and see whether there are concessions on that. If the UK Prime Minister survives this vote and comes to Brussels, if she can get concessions from the other EU leaders, but that does really look very unlikely. So even if she survives the vote, her position remains incredibly difficult as she tries to get Brexit on the table and get the deal through the Parliament.
Tough times indeed for Theresa May. Thank you, Jack Parrock in Brussels and Oli Barak there in London. In Nigeria, there is some political uneasiness after the country's main opposition candidate failed to attend a signing ceremony of an election accord. The agreement seeks to bind politicians to a commitment to engage in a peaceful electioneering process early next year. The opposition People's Democratic Party said its candidate, Atiku Abubakar, had not participated in the signing due to a communication lapse. The accord aims to ensure that the 2019 elections are free, fair and credible. Signatories pledged that their campaigns would refrain from violence and religious incitement, ethnic or tribal profiling. The PDP said it was investigating the circumstances behind the unfortunate communication lapse between party officials, which resulted in Abubakar's absence. All right, so let's get more details on that story. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam joins us live from Abuja. Kelechi, is there clarity as to why the main opposition candidate missed that important election accord signing?
Well, there's been media reports that the main opposition leader, Atiku Abubakar, boycotted the peace accord signing. But he finally came out to explain why he wasn't at the signing ceremony. Atiku said that he was not officially invited to the peace accord signing. His spokesman, Paul Ibe, did confirm that Atiku didn't get an invitation to the program. He wasn't the only one who was conspicuously absent. The leader of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign group, Obi Ezekwesili, was also not present at the event. However, we understand that they would be signing the peace accord today.
And Kelechi, how is this election accord expected to ensure the coming polls there in Nigeria are devoid of any violence?
Well, yes, the peace document provides that parties must commit themselves to running issue-based campaigns, to refrain from comments or issues capable of inciting their followers or supporters to violence. Now, as it is, there's a lot of tension in the polity already. There's ethnic and religious tensions, from clashes between cattle herders and farmers over land to the northeast crisis where Boko Haram has been fighting to establish an Islamic caliphate. There's also been unrest in the eastern region where the separatist group IPOB is pushing for an independent state. Now, that's just to mention a few. So clearly, it's like a time bomb waiting to explode. Although it's not a legally binding document, what it would do is to put the politicians on their toes and make them commit to issue-based campaigns only. Now, however, it behoves on individuals and key players who have the moral obligations to ensure that they uphold the agreement. Peninah?
All right, Kelechi, thank you for that update. Kelechi Mekalam live there in Abuja. Still in West Africa, Gambians are looking forward to having a new constitution after President Adama Barrow inaugurated an 11-member commission to review the current one. The commission, which is touring the country, creating awareness about its mandate, has heard suggestions from citizens, especially concerned about ensuring good governance. CGTN's Will Kistanyabo reports.
The dusty lot in the middle of Kiang Kaif village in rural Gambia serves as a village meeting ground. Here locals have assembled to contribute to the country's constitutional review process. For the last month, commissioners from the newly formed Constitutional Review Commission have crisscrossed the country. They want to know what locals want included in the new document. The question of citizenship and how to acquire it elicits varied opinions. In many villages, locals have also raised questions about whether the death penalty should be abolished. And the sessions never end without the question of how to ensure credible elections and good governance coming up.
Elections should be in one day. Parliamentary and presidential election should be in one day. And maybe marble system we should leave that to now and go in paper elections. This is what other countries are doing.
Since the Gambia's former president Yahya Jammeh lost his seat in a contested election, Gambians have developed a keen interest in local politics.
Our hope is that there will be a new constitution that will pave the way for a third republic, a constitution that will stand the test of time, be inclusive, and ensure our democratic process is on track.
In 2016, Adama Barrow defeated Jammeh in a disputed election. Jammeh's 22-year rule was characterized by allegations of human rights violations. The current constitution was drafted during his reign. Commissioners want to produce a document that reflects the change that has taken place since then.
The constitution has undergone numerous amendments, well over 50 amendments. And it was felt that continuing to amend the constitution wasn't being helpful to many people. It has caused some confusion to the extent that we have different versions of the same constitution.
They are raising a lot of issues, especially coming into the issues of let's look at the powers that our executives have. How can we make sure that the power is not centered around one end, but we decentralize the powers?
Once the draft constitution is complete, commissioners will return it to the public for further discussion before submitting it to the government for approval. As the constitutional review process gathers steam in the Gambia, the Constitutional Review Commission is aware that it has just 18 months to condense the views and opinions of citizens into a document that will safeguard their rights as well as those of future generations. Bulkisanya was CGTN in the Gambia.
You're watching Africa Live. Coming up after the break. Manhunt intensifies for wounded suspect who opened fire near popular Christmas market in the French city of Strasbourg. And we get more reactions after the landmark adoption of a global migration compact.
How will your world change today? What happens here?
what happens there, or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Now to France, where the Interior Minister has said at least 3 people were killed after a gunman opened fire near a popular Christmas market in the city of Strasbourg. Police have locked down the area as they search for the suspect who fled after being wounded. Local security services say the gunman has been identified and that he was on a watch list of suspected extremists. Authorities have opened a terrorism investigation but have not yet given a motive for the attack. CGTN's Oliver Miacic reports.
Well, Strasbourg is home to one of Europe's oldest Christmas markets. It was set up in the 16th century, and the street where the shooting began at about 8 p.m. local time here in France was actually connecting to those Christmas markets, which take place in several squares around the city. Now, the gunman opening fire there, the police, we believe, have injured him shooting in retaliation, but he has then since fled. This is very much an ongoing situation. The police are advising people to stay within their homes. Those people who were inside the city centre, inside the immediate vicinity of what was going on, have been locked inside restaurants, bars, inside a big department store, as well as politicians at the European Parliament. So very much an ongoing situation still here. French Prime Minister and the Interior Minister and the French President are currently meeting for an emergency meeting before the Interior Minister will go to Strasbourg so he can report from the ground what is going on. We know that the counter-terrorism prosecutor has been assigned to this case, and so far we understand that there is going to be an ongoing security presence in Strasbourg. Oliver Whitfield-Miacic, CGTN, Paris.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has been deepening ties with African countries on all levels. This month, he announced that Egypt will be offering 100 military sponsorships for African armed forces as part of Egypt's annual aid program to the continent. CGTN's Adel Mahroui has more.
Africa has been leading Egypt's foreign policy priorities since President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi was elected in 2014. With the beginning of his second term this year, Cairo has been heavily approaching African nations, aiming to create a collaborative platform to serve the continent's common interests. El-Sisi believes military cooperation is key for closer ties with Africa.
History shows that Egypt has a moral obligation to support African armies. When it took a step back in previous decades, divisions spread. Since June 30, 2013, Egypt, through President el-Sisi, has been keen to protect the axis of national security, among them the African security, from the Sahara southwards. That includes an increase in welcoming African military delegations to Egypt.
With establishing its first defense exhibition edX, Egypt has created the first event that connects African and Arab armies. And this month, el-Sisi announced 100 additional military sponsorships for African citizens.
We aim to increase the number of military education and training sponsorships given to our African brothers. With that addition, Egypt is looking forward to offer 100 scholarship programs for undergraduate military academies, 200 opportunities for the officers, and 700 different grants and training opportunities. This should help increase the strength and power of African armies.
Egypt has been recently stressing that African countries must be empowered to fight terrorism and rely more on their troops in maintaining peace.
The military sponsorships are the latest addition to Egypt's annual grant to Africa. El-Sisi's announcement comes just few weeks before Egypt shares the African Union in 2019. Cairo is persistent to encourage Pan-African cooperation through creating a framework for African countries to rely more on each other. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
To Morocco, where historic agreement on migrants and migration was adopted without the support from the US and some European nations. The Global Compact on Migration calls for the protection of migrants' rights and a coordinated approach in dealing with them. And as CGTN's Jin Keo reports, focus now shifts to the UN General Assembly, which is expected to endorse the document next week.
Well, the GCM has been hailed as a major breakthrough in the management of migrants. Its adoption by 164 countries came after almost 2 years of debate and negotiations. The non-binding accord calls for safe and orderly migration. The UN says up to 60,000 migrants have died or gone missing since 2000, 3,000 of them in 2018. 29 countries, though, stayed away from the conference. 10, including the US, have opted out, following fears that it may infringe on its policies, while others, especially in Europe, fear an influx of refugees. Well, with migrant numbers projected to rise from the current 250 million, experts have said the accord may not be the miracle they are looking for, but owing to the necessity, it's a start, and given its non-binding nature, its success will largely depend on the political goodwill of member countries. Jin Keo, CGTN, Marrakesh, Morocco.
As delegations jetted out of Morocco on Tuesday, there has been a flurry of reactions to the Global Migration Compact. Some European countries opted out of the deal. CGTN's Mariam Zaidi has more on this.
Cheers for German Chancellor Angela Merkel in Morocco. She hailed the new United Nations Migration Pact, signed by over 160 countries, as a step towards ensuring better human rights for all refugees and migrants. But Europe's migration crisis, which erupted in 2015 and fractured European solidarity, was her undoing after 13 years at Europe's helm. Merkel will leave politics by 2021. From Germany to Italy, Austria and throughout Central Europe, the continent's political landscape has been polarised by migration and fueled support for populists and nationalists.
The European Union member states obviously do not have any problem with illegal migration because the numbers are very small. However, the topic is being used by far-right parties to divide society, to win votes and to stir fear. And that, of course, is a very dangerous political road to go.
Last Sunday, Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel was forced to reshuffle his government to prevent it from imminent collapse. His far-right coalition partners, the New Flemish Alliance, quit the government over a row over the UN Migration Pact.
They keep telling us it is non-binding, but it's also not open-ended. It means it can have an impact eventually on our jurisdiction. It can sneak in, it's soft law that can sneak into our jurisdiction. It is so vague that judges and courts can interpret it in their own way and can fill in. And this is what we don't want. Also because the basic principles of this compact are contrary to our vision on immigration. We are not against immigration, but we want to control it.
The UN Global Compact for Migration aims to safely manage migration through cooperation on all levels, national and international. But it also looks to reinforce existing human rights, along with ensuring social and economic benefits.
The European Union supports the Global Compact in its overwhelming majority. There are 1 or 2 member states who have decided to opt out, including the Austrian government, which currently has the presidency. And that's symptomatic of right-wing governments within the European Union who are using the Global Compact as a symbolic way of attacking multilateral approaches to migration. These are populist governments showing a signal that they don't want to have a multilateral approach, but they want to have an isolationist approach to immigration. And that to me is a very bad sign.
On Monday, Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel said signing the Migration Pact puts his country on the right side of history. But with 8 of the EU's 28 countries rejecting the agreement, is Europe's credibility on migration at stake? Mariam Zaidi, CGTN, Brussels.
We go to Mantapala settlement in Zambia now, where there is a new broader approach for accommodating refugees. Zambia has committed itself to including refugees in its national development plan. The initiative hopes to promote coexistence between refugees and host communities. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has more.
The Mantapala settlement is home to both Congolese refugees and locals in Zambia. It's built around an existing farmland. The settlement is designed to encourage inclusion and foster good relations between locals and refugees as part of the wider response to refugee movements. A new school is being built alongside this clinic, which will be accessible to everyone.
I'm happy and feel like there is now a clinic nearby. If I don't feel well, I can just come here and get help.
The majority who live here are farmers, traders or artisans.
We all get on really well together. I have lots of Congolese friends. They're really friendly and there is no conflict between us.
If we work together with them, the Zambians will not feel annoyed and they will not think that we have come to take over their land. If we all work together, they will also benefit. They will earn more money that they can use in their homes.
The initiative is supported by government, the UN Refugee Agency and various partners.
It is important that refugee programs also benefit the host community. So you will see from the approaches in Mantapala that all the services that we have set them up in the communities where the refugees have come to settle.
Last year, the Zambian government passed legislation that ensured that refugees and their hosts benefit from investment in the region through development support. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Members of the UN Commission on Human Rights have ended a 3-day visit to Sudan. The UN Human Rights Commission delegation discussed the possibility of establishing a human rights office in the country. The global body has pledged to coordinate activities with the local commission of Sudan on human rights issues. The delegation is also scheduled to visit South Sudan, Ethiopia and Uganda as part of their probe into human rights violations in East Africa.
In many things, we found a very great improvement. Universal Periodic Review, UPR, faces Sudan with several questions. Sudan answered many questions, and some questions will be subject to discussion, and some will be subject to consultation for some of the reservations that they may see. While in Sudan, the commissioners also met with government officials and community leaders, civil society organizations and UN staff working in the region.
Schoolgirls in South Sudan are being taught to protect themselves against sexual assault. The lengthy civil war has led to an increase in violence against women and girls, mostly by armed men. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports on the initiative that's empowering young women.
These young women are learning self-defense skills so they can protect themselves from sexual assault.
The whole aim of our curriculum or the program for ladies or girls is just to get away. Yeah, we can hurt the person maybe by poking the eyes. We just poke the eyes. When the person feels the pain, we run away. We can't stand again and look like either the person is coming, I fight back and I win. No.
Medical charity Doctors Without Borders reports 125 women and girls were raped last month alone in Bentiu in the northern part of the country. And it's not just about fighting.
If a man wants to rape you, there are things you can do to escape. There are also those who call young girls to their houses with the intention of raping them, or bring some gifts to young girls to entice them, then rape them. I now know what to do when such men start approaching me.
The training is good for us to learn when someone is wanted to attack you, you will know how to defend yourself.
Ujama Africa also runs a program for boys. They learn about the effects of rape on girls and on themselves, including possible jail time.
Sexual violence is punishable by law in South Sudan, but most cases don't make it to court, partially because of a long outstanding mistrust of the justice system and partially because during the war, people relied on traditional approaches to settling disputes.
Ujama Africa raises taboo topics with young people, opening the door for such discussions in classrooms.
This program is helping teachers as well. Some teachers were shy to talk about issues such as rape or sexual violence to pupils, but with this training, they are now freely talking about it, and we are beginning to witness a reduction in the number of girls getting pregnant here in the school.
It's hoped that by training young people and raising awareness, there will be far less sexual violence in future generations. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Let's break up our top stories. This British Prime Minister Theresa May has pledged to fight a vote of no confidence against her leadership. Speaking outside her Downing Street office, May said a change of leadership would put Britain's future at risk and jeopardize Brexit negotiations. Lawmakers in the Conservative Party are set to vote on the no confidence motion against the UK Prime Minister later on Wednesday. In France, the Interior Minister has said at least 3 people were killed after a gunman opened fire near a popular Christmas market in the city of Strasbourg. Police have locked down the area as they search for the suspect who fled after being wounded. Local security services say the gunman has been identified and that he was on a watch list of suspected extremists. In Nigeria, there is some political uneasiness after the country's main opposition candidate failed to attend a signing ceremony of an election accord. The opposition People's Democratic Party said its candidate, Atiku Abubakar, had not participated in the signing due to a communication lapse. The accord aims to ensure election campaigns would refrain from violence and religious incitement, ethnic or tribal profiling. And that's a wrap of our top stories. Coming up in business news. Tunisia welcomes China-led Belt and Road Initiative as it pursues gateway position into Africa. And Tanzania to sign a $3 billion deal for electricity generation.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Tunisia's government has welcomed the Belt and Road Initiative as well as China's principle of a win-win partnership. The country is strengthening trade ties with China as it seeks to be the main gateway for Chinese exports into sub-Saharan Africa.
The Tunisian parliament discussed at a hearing session the country's foreign policy and strategic vision for the coming years. Foreign Minister Khamis Hinawi noted that strengthening political, economic and cultural ties with China is one of the state's top priorities.
After his return from the September Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, the Tunisian premier ordered all ministers and state agencies to boost cooperation with the Chinese enterprises in all sectors. China is a friend and a distinguished partner.
Hinawi said that Tunisia can play an important role in Africa and sees the opportunity from China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative.
The Belt and Road project has revived African economies. Tunisia can be an active player in this gigantic economic vision. Tunisia aims to benefit from China's growing business and investment in the continent.
The Tunisian Investment Authority is working closely with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Beijing on reinforcing cooperation between the two institutions and the exchange of information on the companies, in addition to the participation in events in both countries and encouraging businessmen to invest.
Projects related to basic infrastructure are being studied, while others will be announced shortly, like the Zarzi's Industrial Zone project, for which an agreement has already been signed. and other industrial projects, including the creation of a car manufacturing unit in Tunisia.
The Tunisian Chinese Business Council, stemming from the Tunisian Confederation of Industry, Trade and Handicrafts, has recently announced there are important opportunities for cooperation with China, particularly the conquest of the Chinese market with Tunisian products.
The Tunisian Chinese Business Council plans to introduce Tunisian businessmen to the Chinese market through the organization of visits in coordination with its partner in Beijing, which is the China World Trade Center. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Tanzania's President John Magufuli says his government will sign a deal for the construction of a $3 billion hydroelectric power plant this week. The power plant and the dam are expected to be built in the Selous Game Reserve, a UN-designated World Heritage Site in southern Tanzania. He did not mention the company awarded the contract, but reports indicate it is Egypt's Arab contractors. Magufuli says they are moving ahead with the project due to improved revenue collection by the government without giving details. The 2,100 megawatt project will more than double the country's power generation capacity. However, the choice of location has faced opposition from wildlife and environment conservationists. On to Nigeria now. The country's daily oil production is expected to drop by a minimum of 44,000 barrels. This comes as a result of a resolution by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. CGTN's Philly Haza has more.
According to OPEC, the move to reduce daily oil production effective from January 2019 is targeted at helping regulate crude oil prices on the international oil market. A statement released after a meeting of 15 member countries in Vienna, Austria, reports the cut is subject to a review in April 2019. Nigeria, Africa's largest producer of oil and a member of OPEC, produces around 1.7 million barrels of oil per day. The country has the capacity to produce over 2.5 million barrels per day, but has not been able to achieve this since 2016 because of militant activities in the oil-rich South-South region of the country. The militants claim despite many decades of oil production, the government has underdeveloped the region. Africa's most populous country relies on oil as its major source of revenue to cater for its nearly 200 million population. However, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, has assured citizens that the country will not be affected by the cut in oil output next year. A global slump in oil prices in 2014 led the country to a recession in 2016, and since then the Nigerian government has been making efforts to diversify its oil-dependent economy to other sectors like agriculture. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja, Nigeria.
Zimbabwe has embarked on a project to renew infrastructure in most of its towns while constructing new smart cities. The projects are expected to address issues such as urban density, housing shortage, water and sanitation, as well as smart energy solutions. CGTN's Terry Wangari reports.
The extensive urban renewal was kicked off by the new parliament building donated by the Chinese government and a new capital city around the new parliament. The new capital will occupy 18,000 acres and accommodate 1 million people at full capacity. The government is formulating the master plan and will service the land to add value to the city. The land will then be auctioned off to various investors.
This development is thus bound to create abundant trade and investment opportunities for both local and international investors. I therefore invite developers and investors to come on board and develop a world-class new city. Our private sector, I appeal to you. Here is an opportunity for long-term development, for long-term investment, for long-term return to your capital.
The program will see the rehabilitation and development of some of Zimbabwe's oldest residential suburbs to world-class status by 2030. The areas will have various environmental, commercial and residential renewal projects, including new construction and refurbishment of schools, health centers and residential infrastructure. The programs are expected to cost over $30 billion. Although they seem ambitious,
Funding for the projects will be through government and private partnerships, as well as direct foreign investment. Terry Wangari, CGTN.
If you're in the mood for a freshly baked donut, you might pop into your local bakery. Well, a pair of Kenyan entrepreneurs have customers hopping to their Instagram page for a batch of donuts. Astatal has more on Kenya's growing Insta market.
In a small production space in Kikuyu, Kenya, Michael Mumbi prepares to make a batch of donuts. Michael and his partner, Wilson Muhia, don't need much space. Their customers won't be found in a bakery, but online.
My partner and I, Michael, we usually just invited each other, come over, try a recipe, we cooked, so it's more or less like, can't say showing off how well you can cook, but yes, this time round we did donuts and we both liked them and we shared them with also some other neighbors, and they advised, well, how about you try and sell them? And that same evening we just set up Grub Donuts on Instagram, and the rest is history.
They now offer 11 different flavors. Instagram helps the pair not only show off their unique donuts, but also attract customers. Orders are placed on their website, with 98% of the traffic coming from Instagram. Grub Donuts is not the only Kenyan business cashing in on social media platforms.
If you look at the Kenyan context, there are a lot of barriers to you just selling your stuff online. So a very classic problem is collecting payments. Another one is doing deliveries. So it wasn't so obvious that people would jump into the e-commerce space directly. So I think what really happened is people found these social media channels as good ways to market and get people to know a bit more about what they are selling.
Online shopping in Kenya has grown 14% over the past 3 years. Social media platforms like Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram make up around 15% of online sales. But a lack of trust is preventing the market from reaching its full potential. By interacting with their customers purely online, reviews carry a lot of weight for Grub Donuts.
Instagram and the fact that we're online and we do not have a physical shop really matters in terms of customer reviews. So we're basically running this business on reputation, on a good reputation. So if we get a really bad review, that basically means our business comes to an end. So we need to keep up the donuts in immaculate condition.
The pair hope to grow past Instagram and become a big brand name with bakeries all over the country. They'll get there one picture at a time. Astatal in Nairobi, Kenya.
In Togo, a small traditional barter market in the east of the capital Lome is keeping traditions alive while also working to reduce poverty. As CGTN's Uche Okoronko reports, no money changes hands in this market, just traders and buyers willing to barter for a bargain.
With a blow on his whistle, Alohu Papa declares Togoville's bartering market open for business. No money changes hands in this market, just traders and buyers willing to barter for a bargain.
For Togo, it is a conservative village, but we have decided to preserve it for the future generations to show the children who will be born tomorrow that this is how their grandparents lived. It is on these tracks that the Togolese village finds itself today, while protecting the system of trade, which is barter trade.
Every Saturday in the northern shore of Lake Togo, some 65 kilometers east of the capital Lome, Togoville runs a lively traditional barter market. It was here in 1884 that King Mlapa III of Togoville signed a treaty to become a German protectorate, well before Togo became a French colony. More than just traditions, the barter market is a necessity as food prices and poverty levels rise.
Sometimes I exchange my chickens for corn and ngari. I have to do it because it's hard to sell them.
I left home with corn and ngari to come and exchange them for fish and be able to prepare it at home. I don't come to the market often. I come when I'm a little hungry.
The village is home to some 10,000 people. It is well known as a center for voodoo, attracting devotees to study and practice the religion. Most business here is conducted in the open, oppressive heat. A few dilapidated wooden structures with rusting corrugated roofs are used as shade.
Our parents set up the barter market so that they could let those who don't have anything also live comfortably.
Togoville's barter market is one of the only few surviving in the country. But it isn't just about respecting tradition, it also sustains out of necessity. About half of Togo's nearly 8 million people live below the poverty line. Ucheo Koronkwo, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live, coming up after the break. How an initiative targeting the less fortunate is spreading some festive season cheer in South Africa.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
To an inspiring story in South Africa, the December festive season does not come with lots of joy for people who live in poverty in the country, but a philanthropic organization that works closely with underprivileged communities is spreading a little Christmas cheer. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
There was much cheer in Soweto when the Christmas toy run rolled into town. The Motsepe Foundation initiative was started by one of South Africa's most prominent families 7 years ago.
Once a year we believe in sharing in the spirit of Christmas or the holiday spirit with the children in the less fortunate, coming from less fortunate families. Some of these children come from families where the parents could never even think of buying them toys because of the circumstances at home. So when they receive, little toys as they would today, it means so much to them.
I'm happy that my child has got toys, and it's a great thing that every kid in around Soweto is getting something for Christmas, because some of us don't afford to buy toys, but we're glad and we're happy for what is happening right here.
Local and international celebrities also joined in on the action, to the delight of thousands of children who collected their spoils.
I'm so happy because I got a ball, because I always wanted it. So thank you, Motsepe Foundation.
Motsepe is a guy who cares of education and who loves children, and an honest man who can help us here in the world.
The Motsepe Foundation and artists like us to be able to connect with the actual people and help out is a big deal for me. I think that it's one of the things we need so that the kids grow up knowing that the previous generation cared so much, so now it's up there.
Christmas came early to one of South Africa's most famous townships, bringing smiles to thousands of children. Julie Shire, CGTN, Soweto, South Africa.
Thousands of visitors have shared their passion for chocolate at Tunisia's first festival dedicated to chocolates. The event was held at the prestigious exhibition center in downtown Tunis. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi has more.
Several renowned chefs took part in the Chocolate and Pastry Festival in Tunisia. Chocolate lovers tasted their favorite chocolate pairings. Whether it's milk, dark or white chocolate, the festival features mouth-watering creations.
In a festive atmosphere, the exhibitors, chocolate makers, bakers and confectioners will share with the public their passion, some trade secrets, their novelties, and will present the most recent trends in matters of chocolate and the pastry art.
This fair, the first of its kind in Tunisia, showcases a large selection of chocolates, sweets and pastries to businesses and members of the public.
A competition of sculpture on chocolate was organized by the World Pastry Cup Club. Tunisian chefs unveiled their creations for chocoholics, or chocolate lovers.
The main difficulty is tempering the chocolate by passing it through 3 different temperatures to create a chemical reaction. The Chocolate Sculpture Challenge is an occasion to discover new talents and to share our passion with chocoholics.
At least 200 children have attended the festival. Master chocolatier and food artisans presented a variety of fine chocolates and chocolate-inspired products that tease the taste buds of boys and girls.
School visits open the kids' eyes onto this amazing world. They can learn how to make their favorite chocolate and sweets at home. The chocolate workshop aims to initiate children to the art of chocolate making.
Over 20,000 chocolate lovers flock to the 2-day national event. The Chocolate and Pastry Festival is an occasion for Tunisian professionals to test new products and deepen relations with chocoholics. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Coming up in sports news.